Den Hirschen haben von was, oder?
Hold on. No autographs right now. I got something to handle right here. No disrespect.
Beat on the drums.
Choke, no joke on the mic. Life with success. Is this what it is? Let's go. Life with success. Is this what it is? Paparazzi running around flashing your kids, trying to catch them with a gun or a cig, hoping that they fall in some type of addiction. Baby mama hitting you with numbers like addition. Shit so high, you feel like she pimping. It's alright, bitch. Yeah, I'm tripping, but it's better than the fucking max I'm spitting. You can have every time before you see this Jimmy again. If life was a movie, you'd be going in the wind. And this flow ain't conceptualized off gin and tonic. But how ironic, you foul once a nigga went and got it poppin'. I guess that's why you pushed up when I was Milano hopping. Out in high school, fresh with jewels, looking successful as I do. I made you a star in the hood, kept you in leathers and bamboo. Fresh footwear, girl, I kept you good. Every color to match, your butter sauce, moved you to edge cold. From the concourse, left mom house living better off. Now you write that shit all off. Like taxes, make me wanna remove your parts with chainsaw and axes. Need to roll up and get back to relaxing. Is this what it is? Life with success, huh? Is this what it is? Chicks you took care of, motherfuckers you looked out for. Everybody turn on you, gotta take motherfucking hand out. Is this what it is?
Life with success, sometimes it sucks. When people want something's when they call up.
Yeah.
People wanna hang, cause you got a new truck.
Let's go.
Now you hang with chicks that you dreamed you fuck.
Haters want you stuck, chicks trying to get knocked up. Cake in the oven and eat your cake up. Chick get your own and raise our stakes up. The more you get, yo, the shit get iller. So I might go from the glove one and turn to thriller. Saw dealers get extorted by Popo when they needed a filler. And the shit get realer. They wanna clap back but sit back and be a griller. Or be on a manhunt like Larry Davis. That's on the realer. Success have a lot of dudes on painkillers or puffing that fuzzy like caterpillars. It ain't easy to deal with. Life is success, huh? Is this what it is? Life with success. Is this what it is? Choke, little joke, you know what it is. Let's go, let's go. I inspire y'all to all want more. Don't listen to these fakes and these frauds. They don't own cars with Lamborghini doors. When hype your cut, it's back to the store. I was born in the Jackson, this shit was hell. The place where I saw soldiers fall. Some simply for nothing at all. Some cause they lived on the other side of the wall. Now this might sound crazy, love what the hood made me. Poverty made me far from lazy. This ain't the place you wanna raise your babies. Young girls out here thinking they lazy. Nose powdered white, they brain all hazy. Ask them what they wanna be, they look at you crazy. These young cats out here looking all angry. I was just like them, sometime the music made me act other than myself, no influence lately. Cause behind the scenes they not living greatly. And I found out that most of these cats never took jacks or the penitentiary. Let's go. I inspire y'all to all want more. Don't listen to the face and the frauds. They don't own cars and Lamborghini doors. The hype your cut is back in the store. I inspire y'all to all want more. Don't listen to the face and the frauds. They don't own cars and Lamborghini doors. The hype your cut is back in the store. They not selling drugs, they really not thugs. If they was, where are the slugs? Do you see them when you cop your drugs? Pulling up with S to B in the front? Nah, it's not what they got, it's what they want. In the jungle, we all on the hunt. It's chemical. It's chemical beat. Choke, no joke, no joke, no joke, no joke. You know what it is. This go out to the desperate housewives in New York, Atlanta, Texas, California, Mississippi. I never thought in my life I'd fall for another man's wife. I know that it sounds trite. I'm caught up with a desperate housewife. I never thought in my life I'd fall for another man's wife. I know that it sounds trite. I'm caught up with a desperate housewife. It was quick how it happened. We was just chatting, had a lot in common. I kept her laugh in the department in which her man was lacking. He was the king of the ship. Somehow I became captain. My swag on platinum, on my goldie, just smacking. Then phone sex had happened. Then things went left. A common interest in sex, something like Little Kim and Hugh Hef. We knew if we met, it would be electric. Then the day came and we met. It was beyond my dream. Her cream so sweet, it made me scream. It was like a dream. Knew why he made a queen. I wanted to find Marty McFly and use that time machine and run up in the church, create a scene, object to that wedding and give her my ring. Like I never thought in my life I'd fall for another man's wife. I know that it sounds trite. I'm caught up with a desperate housewife. I never thought in my life I'd fall for another man's wife. I know that it sounds trite. I'm caught up with a desperate housewife. Yeah, choke no joke.
KK on
New
the beat.
life. They said I'd be dead or in jail. They was half right, I saw right can sell. I knew I wasn't rich when I couldn't make bail. I made out good, 5 niggas that didn't tell. Hold up, don't go to trial when caught up. Roll the dice, watch the numbers just go up. When your offer was short as a pup's nuts, you got the whammy, cause you pressed your luck. You could've been back on the town, industry bound, no more busting it down. To quarters, half O's, having to catch the flow, and reassuring those who act like they don't know that the ratchet let go. If you think we won't fill them hollow points up with mercury, send them to another planet, leave them screaming like Mike and Janet. Niggas can't stand it. I felt champagne with Ross running the game. When I was locked and the CO jumped in my face, talking gangster, nigga. Like I'm not a fucking gangster, nigga. But you got it in here, cause the odds ain't fair. Cause you got that walkie and that button right there. But after 8 hours, you leave here. And that's when you friend, it's not fair. You shoot at the range, we shoot when in range. Roll up in that range, your face look real strange. The look on my face is I got that aim. Before you reach, you feel the pain. Blood stain, calculate to your brain. You been licked by that thing. In the game of death, that's what you get when got game. It's a method to the madness, how I bring the pain of one that's not sane. Choke no joke, I do my thing. Can't hang. They say you're nobody until they kill you. I'm somebody alive, guess that make me an ill dude. Made my name before the funeral, considered a legend and still make moves. They know you when you gone, they know me when I'm on. All over the board, you restricted, you pawn. You wouldn't cut a lawn, blow a candle at dawn. Choke got it going on like fuel. Some of you fools is more ass than mule. Never rule like Rick with Mona Lisa in your crib. Haters mad cause I'm doing what they wish they did. Without the rock, it's still gunning like Chris. Nigga try to block, I time off this shit. Nigga looking down at me, now he looking at dick. Pause, just determined shit. It's choke, no joke. Nigga, I'm lit. Fired up. And we recorded this in the D and shit.
Stay the hell. Don't follow those cats. The niggas that be on the gram. Tell them what they doing. Choke, no joke.
You know what it is.
Yo, y'all niggas better stay DL. Down low. Stop flossing, man. You just want them to just come and get you? Learn from our mistakes, man. That's what this is about. Learn from mistakes. Choke, no joke. Let's go. You already know. Make it low. Let's go.
My aim was enlightened. Drop jewels on you. You thinking I'm jealous? I ain't got cheddar like you. I'm the dude to a game you got schooled. Was a local cat, snatched you when I made moves. I'm paranoid and preaching, you was sleeping. Knew you was sneak deep and couldn't see us beefing. Learn from mistake, don't show I got cake. Impress a nigga to rob me, bitch in my face. Get knocked by the feds, lay up for about 8. Ass so busy flossing, ain't thinking about Jake. Loose, yapping, they wiretapping, videotaping, your ways in action. Front like times hard, two-door garage, ice like Liberage, with no damn jaw, without a reasonable doubt. You think you Jay-Z with your platinum jewelry, he got a job, B. You shining on doctors with 4 degrees, laughing cause I'm broke on the streets.
Stay DL, PDL and Sal.
You ain't DL when your name ring bells.
Stay DL, PDL and Sal.
You ain't DL when your name ring bells.
Stay DL, PDL and Sal.
You ain't DL when your name ring bells. Let's go. For beef, we not dolo. For cash, you go solo. Thought I was your man, shot me down like Manolo. Thought I was your partner when you played me was whack. No niggas dust that I wouldn't flip like that. What gives? See your man struggle while you live? That's some shit. Struggling, give you the kicks. Used to stick for gooses. Warm when we pump deuces. Break night in the jacks, trying to see millions like Brewster. You don't act like you used to. I'm the dude. When niggas was friends, you was like, yo, Joe, come through. I wet you like McLean for those who claim to be pain. The game of death, that's what you get with got game. Ill with automatics, we're never static. You carry at niggas, put one in your cabbage. Fear, don't have it, you fill me with laughter. In OGSC, then I'm original gun clapper. Like Dan get dapper, see a mill be Casper. Like Dre the doctor, the math for master.
Stay DL, PDL and Sal.
You ain't DL when your name ring bells.
Stay DL, PDL and Sal.
You ain't DL when your name ring bells.
Stay DL, PDL and Sal.
You ain't DL when your name ring bells.
Nigga, y'all loud, louder than the weed, nigga.
Thinking with your pockets, caught the ice locket. She somewhere in Houston, you blew like a rocket. Her seed was bait, through the line she caught it. Gave her all that loot, she couldn't afford it. Frontin' to them bitches, yo, I'm feeling hell. Blue puff in your face, daddy, all about Benjamin. Remember me, I'm your friend to the end. Like Chucky, used to slave bitches like Buffy. Thinking why they cuff me, think of the luxuries you had. In the cell with other willies, you brag. I push the big Benz with 20-inch rims. Went in the club, Chris for all my men. Sitting across the bar, what's up, star? Back to reality, you back in bars. You chose not to listen, had the H-class glisten. Knew the rules of the game, played yourself out position.
Stay DL, PDL and Sal.
You ain't DL when your name ring bells.
Stay DL, PDL and Sal.
You ain't DL when your name ring bells.
Stay DL, PDL and Sal.
You ain't DL when your name ring bells.
Yo, son, yo. So that son is me, yo.
I see.
You ain't noticed me, yo.
I see,
all this
man.
diamonds and stuff, yo.
How can I
Fat
not?
diamond ring I got, yo. Yo, what you talking about, yo?
No,
These diamonds, yo. You know what I'm saying? Yo, I got $35,000 on me right now.
Oh my God.
Nigga, I can show you the money right now. I can show you the money.
No, you ain't gonna show me
I
nothing,
can show you
man.
my gun, yo.
What?
Yo,
Oh my God.
the gun, yo. Son, man, what's the matter with you?
Put that shit away.
Yo, you acting like you scared or something, nigga, yo.
Yo,
Take my
stay
shit out, bust it
DL,
right
man.
now, yo. know what I'm saying?
Stay
I
DL.
do show the jewels, everything, yo, Yo, you heard about Dave?
Oh my God, look at you, man. Yo, stay DL, man.
Choke, no joke, chiggy, choke, no joke. Choke, no joke, chiggy, choke, no joke. You know what it is. You'll never find another love like mine. Hey, what up? You know what I mean? That's right. You shoot at the range because that's where the police is shoot at. You know, that's who that whole verse is for. It's about a correction officer. When I was getting out, uh, he was being an asshole. They kept my wallet. Like they mad because I'm getting out of jail. So that's who that verse was to that correction officer. But that's why I said you shoot at the range. We shoot when we in range. Roll up on your range, your face looks strange. Using, metaphors, using range 3 times, but in 3 different ways. You shoot at the gun range, we shoot when we in range. Roll up on your Range Rover and your face looks strange. You dig? Shoot at the range, shoot when in range. Roll up on that range, your face look real strange. The thought in my head is I got that aim. Before you reach, you feel the pain. Blood stain, you see the blood stain calculate to your brain. You see the blood, and it lets you know you've been shot. Blood stain calculate to your brain. You've been licked by that thing. In the game of death, that's what you get when got game. You get it? In the game of death, death is what you get when you got game. If you got game, you're going to die. So in the game of death, death is what you get when got game. That's why I say it's a method to the madness when I bring the pain. Method man, bring the pain. It's a method to the madness when I bring the pain of one that's not sane. Meaning a nigga is not act crazy, like he ain't got it together. I gotta bring the pain to him because he acting like he ain't sane. You dig? Just gotta put a little bit more thought into it. Yeah, I like wordplay, you know? These dudes don't be having no wordplay. Make sure y'all follow me on my new Instagram too, all right? What's good? What's good? Ed in the building, Seattle in the building. Am I high? Why? Because I'm on my phone or I'm not talking enough for you? Or I look tired. Seattle Cranes. High on what? Mushrooms? High on what? Cocaine? High on what? Weed? Yo, pass the chips, man. Pass the chips. High on what, man? Dope? Huh? What you say? Yeah. What you say? Huh? Who said something? Said something. You said something? Said something? He said something. He said, huh? Am I high? Am I high? High on what? Things y'all say, man. You'll never find another love like mine. One who loves you the way I do. Oh, I love you, baby. I love you, girl. You in my world. It's true. No joke. Said Fred, what up? Reginald, what up? Queen Kiana, what up? Jim, Mike, Siani, Rare Beauty, Tasha Rain, Love and Loyalty, Simply Erica, Rita, NC, Eric, what up? Ice Nut, Tracy the Jazz Lifer. I see you. Thumbs up to you too. Lydia, what up? Bigger BX, what up? Iris was good. Yeah, so I'm gonna jump back into this. I don't know. Yesterday I was having a hunger headache or something, but yo, my vision was blurry, G. You know, like Flavor Flav, my vision was blurry, G. I ain't know what was going on, G. Oh, let me let them know on the grid end that we live and direct. choke, no joke. Yeah. So if you didn't see yesterday, I suggest you go back and see how I started off with this. Right now, I'm about to go into Racketeering Act 5, the Mann Act violation, Geronda. The government failed to prove Racketeering Act 5 where there was insufficient evidence that the defendant used a facility of interstate commerce. Used a facility of interstate commerce to knowingly persuade, induce, entice, or coerce Geronda to engage in sexual activity that violated Illinois law, and that the defendant knowingly committed the prohibited sexual activity. To obtain a conviction under, I guess, the law statute 2422B, the government must show that the defendant used a facility of interstate commerce to knowingly persuade, induce, or entice any individual who is younger than 18 years old to engage in sexual activity of a criminal nature. Yeah, I like that. Okay, where am I? All right. And that's they using United States versus Brand 467F 3D, all that. I know that y'all don't care about. First, the government did not prove that the defendant used a facility of interstate commerce to persuade Geronda to engage in aggravated criminal sexual abuse between May 2009 and January 2010. Defendant contends that purely interstate use of cell phone does not constitute use of a facility of interstate commerce. And they use United States versus Lopez as an example. I don't know if y'all can see me good this way. I just don't want this damn light. Hold on a second. You'll never find. Yeah, that's cool. I can live with that. The light and the computer reading on the white paper, like I'm white it out, dude. First, the government did not prove that the defendant used a facility of interstate commerce to persuade Geronda to engage in aggravated criminal sex abuse between May 2009 and January 2010. Defendant contends that purely interstate use of cell phones does not constitute use of facility of interstate commerce. United States versus Lopez. There are limits on Congress' power to create federal criminal prohibitions on traditionally state-regulated spheres on non-economic activity. But see United States versus Giordano, finding that the jurisdiction element of whatever the number is satisfied by interstate uses telephone capable of transmitting transmit and communicates between states. Even if purely interstate use of cell phones constituted use of facility, even if pure interstate use of cell phones constituted use of a facility of interstate commerce, the government's evidence that defendant called Geronda on a telephone is not sufficient proof that he used the facility of interstate commerce, in parentheses, a cell phone, according to the government, to knowingly induce, persuade, entice, or coerce Geronda to come to Olympia Fields to engage in prohibited sexual activity. The government provided no text exchanges showing that the defendant used any words to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce, nor did Geronda testify during any telephone conversation or on any text messages did the defendant use words for the purpose of inducing, persuading, entice, or coercing her to come to his home or studios for prohibited sexual activities. Under the plain reading of the statute, there must be a nexus between the use of the cell phone and the words of persuasion, enticement, or coercion to satisfy the violation. For example, if the defendant called Geronda and invited her to a party at his home, and then once there, he coerced her into prohibited sexual activity, that doesn't constitute a Mann Act violation pursuant, since the defendant did not use the facility of interstate commerce, which would be a cell phone, to coerce her into or induce her into the prohibited sexual activity. The use of the cell phone for some unknown communication coupled with a subsequent prohibited sex act is not sufficient to establish a violation of the 2422B. Lastly, if the defendant really believed that Geronda was 17 when they engaged in sexual activity, and that belief was reasonable, then he would not be guilty of aggravated criminal sexual abuse, R 4351. Taking the evidence in the light most favorable to the prosecution, no reasonable juror could conclude that the defendant knew that Geronda was 16 years old when they allegedly engaged in sexual activity between May 2009 and January 2010. How are they even charging him with something in 2009 and 2010? Anyway, Geronda turned 17 years old in April of 2010. The government's exhibit 70, which depicts a photo of Geronda, would fail to put any reasonable person on notice that she was 16 years old rather than 17 years old. The record reflects that Geronda habitually lied about her age. When she was 15 years old, she befriended a 23-year-old woman with whom she would attend the defendant's Illinois State Court appearances in 2008. To gain access to those court appearances, Geronda had to demonstrate that she was 18 years of age, presumably by showing an identification. After using her older connections to get invited to a party at the defendant's home in Olympia Fields, she sought out the defendant and falsely told him that she was 19 years old. To be clear, there is no evidence that the defendant sought out Geronda. Geronda implausibly claims that after going through all the trouble of lying about her age to get close to the defendant and pass his security team, she decided to disclose her true age of 16 immediately after their first sexual encounter. Geronda claims that the defendant was indifferent. Geronda claims that the defendant was indifferent to her age and continued to engage in sexual relations with her until January 2010. The government's evidence falls painfully short of proving that the defendant did not reasonably believe that Geronda was 17 years old at the time of their alleged sexual activities. The government allegedly recovered a copy of Geronda's fake ID and birth certificate in the storage facility purportedly belonging to the defendant. Rather than reach the obvious conclusion that Geronda provided a fake ID to the defendant's security team to gain access into the home, the government alleges the defendant or someone in his inner circle went through the trouble of altering her ID and photocopying it. No rational juror can conclude that the defendant engaged in sexual activities with Geronda with the understanding that she was not of legal consenting age. Number 4, Racketeering Act 6, forced labor, Geronda. No rational juror could conclude, based on the evidence adduced at trial, that the defendant knowingly obtained or agreed to obtain any labor services from Geronda on January 23rd, 2010. A conviction of forced labor under 18 U.S.C. 1589 requires the government to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that 1, that the defendant obtained the labor or services of another person. 2, through inter alia threats or serious harm. And 3, the defendant acted knowingly. The United States versus Marcus 487F. The language by means of contained in the forced labor statute 18 U.S.C. 1589 requires that the government to establish causal link between labor and services provided by the person and the threat of serious harm. Serious harm for purposes of 1589 is defined as any harm, whether physical or non-physical, including psychological, financial, or reputational harm that is sufficiently serious under all the surrounding circumstances to compel a reasonable person of the same background and in the same circumstances to perform or to continue to perform in labor services in order to avoid incurring that harm. Mushara versus Al Waraf. Section 1589 is intended to address serious trafficking or cases where traffickers threaten harm to third persons, restrain their victims without physical violence or injury, or threaten dire consequences by means other than overt violence. The harm or threat of harm, considered from the vantage point of a reasonable person and the place of the victim, must be sufficiently serious to compel that the person to remain in her condition of servitude when she otherwise would have left. Part of a fair reading of statutory text is recognizing that Congress legislates against the backdrop of certain unexpressed presumptions. United States versus Tuvey, same section 1589. The forced labor statute was passed to implement the 13th Amendment against slavery or involuntary servitude. United States against Tovey. Congress intended to reach cases in which persons are held in a condition of servitude through nonviolent coercion as well as through physical or legal coercion. According to the government, on an isolated date in January 2010, the defendant violated the forced labor statute by using threats of violence to obtain labor, an act of oral sex from Geronda. The forced labor statute was not intended to reach isolated conduct like the described by Geronda. Accepting the government's evidence in its best light, Geronda described an isolated incident in which the defendant allegedly assaulted her because he was angry that she was on the phone and did not properly acknowledge him when she entered the room. Geronda claimed the defendant slapped and choked her because he didn't believe that I was texting a friend and he got mad about it. R176. Geronda testified that after the purported assault, she sat down with the defendant in the VIP room and he instructed her to perform oral sex on him. Geronda complied with the instruction. Geronda did not testify that the defendant threatened her, forced her, or even demanded that she give him oral sex. Geronda did not claim that she feared the defendant would assault her again if she did not decline the request. Geronda then left the defendant's home and never came back. The government did not establish The government did not establish a causal link between the isolated act of oral sex and any threat of physical violence. Any physical violence that occurred during the episode, any physical violence that occurred during that episode in January 2010 preceded Geronda providing oral sex to the defendant. Geronda's testimony simply does not lead to the reasonable inference that she gave the defendant oral sex because she feared physical violence. Geronda did not claim that the defendant used any words suggesting she would suffer any assault if she did not provide him with oral sex, nor did she claim that she feared another assault if she refused his request for oral sex. Geronda did not even testify that she did not want to give the defendant oral sex. As troubling as Geronda's story may be, the government still must prove the elements of the crime of forced labor by the proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It would not have taken much for Geronda to make the casual link between the act of oral sex and her fear of physical assault by the defendant. But she simply did not provide that testimony. Absent clear expression of absent in parentheses, clear expression of congressional intent. Court, end quote. Courts should resist the urge to transform the forced labor statute to cover the circumstances alleged in Racketeering Act 6, which bear virtually no resemblance to those paradigmatic forced labor cases and their victims. See Tove 761F. In parentheses, describing prostitution, forced sweatshop, describing prostitution, forced sweatshop work, and forced domestic service as paradigmatic forced labor cases. And that's in parentheses. Geronda came and went as she pleased. Even if the defendant prohibited her from wandering his property at will. Geronda came and went as she pleased, even if the defendant prohibited her from wandering his property at will. Defendant did not force Geronda into a condition of servitude through threats of physical force, and the isolated example of oral sex with an alleged abuse act is just not forced labor. The government failed to prove that the defendant used, employed, persuaded, induced, The government failed to prove Racketeering Act 7, that is sexual exploitation of Geronda. According to Geronda, during her 6-month relationship with the defendant, he recorded her with a cam. According to Geronda, during her 6-month relationship with the defendant, he recorded her with a Canon video camera and on an iPhone. The government produced no images or metadata corroborating this claim. Rather, the government contends that the evidence that the defendant owned a Canon video camera and had an iPhone that had the ability to video is sufficient evidence to establish the elements of the offense. The government failed to prove that the defendant used, employed, persuaded, induced, or enticed Geronda to take part in sexually explicit conduct for the purpose of producing a visual depiction. To demonstrate that the defendant committed sexual exploitation of a child pursuant to 18 U.S.C. 2251(a). It is not enough for Geronda to simply allege that the defendant recorded sexually exploit. It is not enough for Geronda to simply allege that defendant recorded sexually explicit conduct. Geronda's testimony was insufficient to prove the defendant used, persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced her into sexually explicit conduct. According to Geronda, she had an ongoing sexual relationship with the defendant before the defendant allegedly video recorded her. a relationship that the defendant would have no reason to believe was prohibited since Geronda misrepresented her age. Although Geronda describes those sexual experiences in hindsight as humiliating, it does not follow the defendant. It does not follow that the defendant did anything to persuade, induce, entice, or coerce her into sexual activity that was recorded. The government must prove that the defendant did something more than just film the sexually explicit conduct. If the act of filming or recording alone was sufficient to sustain the charge, Congress would not have included a requirement that the defendant employ, persuade, induce, entice, or coerce. Furthermore, the government failed to prove that the defendant acted with the purpose of producing a visual depiction of that conduct. Although the jury was erroneously charged that the government could sustain the charge by proving that the purpose was transmitting a visual depiction, the statute requires something different. Indeed, producing is defined by the statute as producing, directing, manufacturing, issuing, publishing, or advertising. 18 USC 2256, number 3. While the statute also prohibits the transmission of live visual depiction, defendant was not charged with transmitting a live visual depiction, and there is no evidence that he did. Lastly, the government's affecting interstate commerce, and affecting interstate is in quotations, commerce evidence was insufficient, where it could not establish what device, if any, was used to make these recordings. Number 6, Racketeering Act 8, Mann Act violations, Jane. The government failed to prove that the defendant committed Mann Act violations in connection with his sexual activity with Jane on or about April 28th, 2015 and May 1st, 2015 in the state of California. Jane was 17 years old in May 2015. She concedes that she misrepresented her age to the defendant when she met him and kept her true age a secret until fall 2015. This is Azrael. This is where I couldn't talk about this stuff before, but now I can. Oh, pull up a chair, call your best friend. You got the people. Follow me on my new Instagram, y'all. It's about to get real heavy right now. If you got the people that say, oh, F. R. Kelly, hit them up right now. Send them this link right now. If you got the people that say, oh, R. Kelly's guilty, this, that, and other, send them the link right now. I'll give y'all 2 to 5 minutes. Send them the link right now. All those R. Kelly haters, send them all the people. Let me make sure. This is what this is. Hold on.
yeah, it's going into it. But let me get into it, right? Okay, because it's a lot. Racketeering Act 8, Mann Act violations, Jane. The government failed to prove that the defendant committed the Mann Act violations and connected in connection with his sexual activity with Jane on or about April 28th, 2015 and May 1st, 2015 in the state of California. Jane was 17 years old in May 2015. She concedes that she misrepresented her age to the defendant when she met him and kept her true age a secret until fall 2015. After meeting defendants in Orlando, Florida of 2015, Jane traveled to meet him in California at the end of 20 April at the end of 20 at the end of April 2015. The government charged the defendant with 2 Mann Act violations in connection with this trip, alleging first that the defendant violated 18 USC. A. Racketeering, AA transportation. Preliminary, the government used the Mann Act under the present set of facts is unprecedented and unjustified. Provides that whoever knowingly transport any individual in interstate or foreign commerce or in any territory or possession of the United States with the intent that such individual engage in prostitution or any sexual activity for which any person can be charged with criminal offense or attempts to do so shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years, or both. The government contended that the defendant arranged for Jane to travel to California with the intent of willingly exposing her to contagious, infectious, or communicable disease, communicable disease in violation of California Health and Safety Code 12290. The government failed to prove a Mann Act violation under 2421, where it offered insufficient evidence that the defendant transported Jane with the intent of exposing her to herpes, and 2, committed a violation of California Health and Safety Code by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. I, intent. Because there is no connecting defendant's transportation of Jane with the intent to expose her to herpes, defendant cannot be guilty of a Mann Act violation. The 9th and 10th Circuit Courts of Appeal have held that to establish the intent requirement of the Mann Act violation, the government must prove that the illegal sexual activity is the dominant, significant, or motivating purpose behind the transportation. See the United States versus Kinslow, 860 F2D. It is not necessarily for the government to prove that illegal sexual activity was the sole purpose for the transportation. A person may have several different purposes or motives for such travel, and each may prompt in varied degrees the act of making the journey. The government must prove beyond a reasonable doubt, however, that a significant or motivating purpose of the travel across state or foreign boundaries was to have individual transportation, was to have the individual transported to engage in the illegal sexual activity. In other words, the illegal sexual activity must have not been merely incident. In other words, the illegal sexual activity must have not been merely incident to the trip. In the United States versus Campbell, the Fifth Circuit analyzed that the intent requirement and held determined whether a dominant purpose exists. We instead ask whether the illicit behavior is one of the efficient and compelling purposes of the travel. And that's United States versus Vane. So basically, she wasn't flying nowhere to be prostituting or selling sex or anything, and they didn't prove that she was, or that he was flying in to knowingly give her herpes, if allegedly. The Second Circuit does not seem to have answered the intent question, but whether this court applies a true dominant purpose standard or merely a significant or motivating purpose standard, the result is the same. The defendant's alleged violation of California health law prohibiting him from exposing a partner to herpes was incidental to the trip. There is no proof in this record that demonstrates the defendant's motivating purpose in transporting Jane to California was to expose her to herpes. In fact, the government cannot even show that the motivating purpose of the trip had anything to do with Jane. As Jane herself testified when asked, question, and while you were 17, did you take additional trips to California with the defendant? Answer, yes, I did. Question, and did you remember where you traveled to? Answer, I do not. Question, do you remember what the purpose of your travel was for? Yes, he has shows. In short, no rational juror could find that the government provided that the defendant's intent to transport Jane to California was to infect her with herpes. Number 2 in that section, the violation of California Health Safety Code. Second, the government did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed a violation of the California Health and Safety Code 12290 because the government charged the defendant with a repealed version of the statute no longer in effect. A version that reduced the government's burden of proof. Prior to the jury charge in this case, defendant prior to the jury charge in this case, defendant notified the court that the jury instructions did not reflect the elements of California Health and Safety Code 12290. The government acknowledged as much, but argued that it charged defendant under the statute that was in effect in 2015. The government had no authority to charge the defendant with that statute that was repealed or inoperative at the time of the prosecution. United States versus Chambers. In case the statute is repealed or rendered inoperative, no further proceedings can be had to enforce it in impeding prosecutions unless competent authority has kept the statute alive for that purpose. So, which in this case it don't. In 2015, 1290-290, 12290 of the California Health and Safety Code provided, except in providing in sections 12291, or in the case of the removal of an inflicted person in a manner the least dangerous to the public health, any persons afflicted with any contagious, infectious, or communicable or communicable disease who willfully exposes himself or herself to another person, and any person who willfully exposes another person afflicted with the disease to someone else is guilty of a misdemeanor. The statute was overhauled entirely in 2018 after the California legislature determined that it was inadequate, having been passed during an era of discrimination towards those affected with HIV. The current statute bears little to no resemblance to the repealed 2015 version, least of all because it now requires a showing of specific intent to transmit the disease. Although repealed and inoperative, the government proposed a jury instruction that attempted to reflect the elements of the 2015 statute. Apparently recognized that the 2015 statute was unconstitutionally vague. In any event, the government stepped into the shoes of the legislator and rewrote the statute to save it from a constitutional challenge. Thus, the government not only charged the defendant with repealed statute, but rewrote it in clear violation of various constitutional provisions, including that the separations of the power clause and principles of community. Including separations of power clause and principles of committee. Defendant's jury was instructed pursuant to a statute that never existed. A California court has no authority to rewrite a California constitution, neither does a district court sitting in New York. Even if the government had the authority to charge the defendant under the 2015 version of the 120-2090 of the California Health and Safety Code, the statute does not pass constitutional muster. Most obviously, the statute is void for vagueness, both on its face and as applied to the defendant. The doctrine of vagueness, in parentheses, guards against arbitrary or discriminatory law enforcement by insisting that the statute provides standards to govern the actions of police officers, prosecutors, juries, and judges, end quote. For example, Sessions versus the state versus Sessions versus DeMaia. As written in 2015, the laws failed to provide adequate definitions that put individuals with any chronic and potentially contagious diseases on notice of what amounts to criminal conduct, including communicable diseases that are not sexually transmitted. By the way, nearly 50% of the population has herpes simplex 1. a communicable disease. Under 2015, under under the 2015 statute, anyone with herpes simplex 1, also known as cold sores, who kisses another person without disclosing that they have herpes simplex 1 is guilty of a misdemeanor. Even if the afflicted person has no active infection, outbreak, and does not pass the disease along to the recipient of the kiss. Under the statute, parents with herpes simplex 1, again, 50% of the population, would be prohibited from kissing their own children. One cannot imagine how many arbitrary prosecutions could take place in this current era of a pandemic if this law was effective today. If this law was in effect today. Even if the elements of the statute were as the government's alleged, insufficient evidence existed to sustain the charge. The government did not prove that the defendant was contagious, infected, or had capacity. The government did not prove that the defendant was contagious, infected, or had capacity to transmit herpes during the sexual encounter he had with Jane in May 2015. Additionally, the government cannot show that the defendant acted willfully with knowledge of the consequences. Presumably, the government assumes that the consequences is transmitting this, presumably, the government assumes that the consequences is transmitting the disease to the person exposed. But effective treatments exist for herpes that significantly reduces outbreaks and the likelihood of transmission. If the defendant was consistently taking Valtrex in April of 2015, it cannot be said that he willfully exposed Jane with knowledge of the consequences, particularly since Jane was not infected with herpes in 2015 of April, or in April of 2015. This racketeering act cannot be sustained where it is based on repealed law. Repealed law was rewritten and was facially unconstitutionally in any event. Racketeering, AB, coercion or enticement. The government the government alternately the government alternately argues that the defendant is guilty of the Mann Act stemming from his April trip to California because the defendant knowingly persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced Jane to travel to California. Insufficient evidence exists to prove that the defendant took any action to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce Jane into traveling to California in April through May 2015. Quite the opposite. The record shows that Jane's mother, Jane is Azrael, and her mother would be Allison Clary. This is Jane and Allison Clary. All right. So quite the opposite. The record shows that Jane's mother purposely and strategically enticed the defendant with her 17-year-old daughter, comparing her to Aaliyah at various points. And you go to evidence GX233. The government takes great umbrage to this characterization, but the record speaks for itself. Although the defense counsel did not make much use out of it, Government's Exhibit 233 offers powerful evidence showing that the defendant had no reason to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce Jane into going to California with him. Text messages introduced by the government show that Jane, which is Azrael, with the guidance of her mother, Alice Clary, enticed the defendant, who reasonably believes that Azrael was 18 years old, to bring her to California. In short, when Azrael traveled to meet the defendant in California in April and May, she required no enticement, no persuasion, or encouragement of any kind. On April 11th, 2015, Azrael attended one of the defendant's concerts in Orlando, Florida. After the show, someone provided Azrael with the defendant's phone number. Azrael attempted to text the number on the phone and gave the paper to her mother. Although Azrael did not reach the defendant, Azrael's mother began texting the defendant, R. Kelly, posing as Azrael, her 17-year-old daughter. I need y'all to send this link to everybody that talk trash about R. Kelly, saying that, oh, he knew this girl was young. This is the one y'all need to be watching right here. Give me a second. Y'all need, look, this is the one. This is the one that y'all need to see. Now I done seen this now. Fellas, you got a baby mother? You better hit her up. Even if y'all ain't on good terms, you hit her up. Okay? And you tell her you need to watch this. Y'all young girls that got y'all mothers out here pushing y'all to be models and all this other stuff, I need y'all to get your friends right now. All y'all that is on the side of the Clarys, or y'all know people that's on their side, get them right now. Get them. All the people that was defending them, all the people that was defending Azrael, and they love Azrael and all that, get them right now. This is when y'all gonna get the full truth about that why Angelo's interview wasn't adding up. And like I said, I don't know. I don't blame Angelo. I blame the mother, because I seen what the mother was doing. This right here, when y'all see this right here, oh man, hit people up right now. Give me a second. I might have to pull up Angelo's interview when we do this. my drive at? I think I'm gonna have to pull up this dude interview because I'm about to show y'all what really happened and what they told us happened. This is gonna blow some of you mothers away. Yeah, like, and please, y'all, do not go attacking these people, man. Do not go attacking these people. You know, you're entitled to voice your opinion, but please don't go attacking these people because this is a very painful truth. Hold on, where is it? I want to just grab it off YouTube. This is gonna be, yo, I'm telling you, this is like, I have no respect for Azrael mother. I don't have no respect for Azrael either, but she was in on it.
Showed him how to get ready to make a dollar. He ain't pay nobody. He probably owe ass.
Yeah, but what's your question, Lo?
Low is
Basically saying is,
first of all,
Yourself is
R. Kelly shit. It's not a game. I didn't rent. That wasn't no, it was right, bro. We should be both be on.
maybe.
And that was it. Now, I didn't say she didn't play a part, but with black eyes and beatings, do you think she didn't get beat? I just want to ask the work, fucking Rashida Rand, whatever, landfill, when this is a conversation that went to an email. Now, whenever a motherfucker want to put up some,
Want them to be on here from some, your kid don't deal with nobody. Everything goes through you. Your phone
calling us.
She knows you. She know her mother don't want her to do that. To teach them how done different.
That shit.
All right, so in September when she went, and you might have a point there.
Okay, thank you. And then when she by then, you did an act with him. So now imagine your parents downstairs, police come drag you out of mother.
There we go.
It was a day and a half. That's how quick it was. A nigga supposed to have been in the show in Miami, and he didn't go to the show. He came back to Orlando, double back, and met my daughter, and told her he needed to interview her because he ain't had no time, and he wanted to see if he could fit her in as opening up on the show. He wanted to really see what he had. See, so all that shit with all them talking, that's how this happened. A man supposed to have been the Miami show. He killed that show. And look, they do all that research. Tell them research the Miami show he canceled to come back to have sex with a goddamn minor. See, that's all the shit they don't want to tell you the truth about. Because they don't know. Because they wasn't in it. They're internet supporters that became fanatics to get their name up, to become somebody.
Fuck them.
Yes, exactly. So that's what happened. It happened that Monday. She skipped school. And the police was called. The police came because we was beating on a five-star hotel room, back and forth, banging on the doors. The regular security.
How did y'all know where they was at?
We didn't know, but we knew they was in that motherfucker because we saw my daughter car and we saw his tour bus and all that shit. We beat on doors. There was floors you couldn't get on, and they called the regular police. But
how y'all know he was at that hotel?
Well, you know, I people that's in the industry as well.
Okay.
That, you know, a lot of calls because you couldn't find that first. Turn the phone off.
Did y'all, when y'all called, she didn't answer?
She turned the phone off. You know, he played his rules, no phone. So when she was doing the interview, cut your phone off. So, you know, and then when she by then, you did an act with him. So now imagine your parents downstairs, police come drag you out of motherfucking room with your school ID. Now everybody know in Florida. No, your ID show, your permit, your paper show your age. There's no getting around it. And I'm quite sure this man is a police officer, he know what the fuck it read.
Y'all called the police on him right there?
Everybody in the hotel called police. So when the police came, we told them what we was there. That's why we was violating gas room. If my daughter was 18, now, Choke, you've been in the industry, you've been around a long time. I'm just going to say this may be the dumbest question in the world. Do you think the police could pull an 18-year-old out of a hotel room without a major lawsuit? Because if I'd have told him my daughter was 18 years old, he would have said, have a nice day. I'm sorry you can't disturb the guests. You can wait here peacefully and hope to see her, but can't disturb the guests. Am I lying or not? Lying or not? It's no foul play. It's this parent saying, our 18-year-old daughter is with a man. He gonna say, okay, she's hello, 18, okay.
You might have a point there.
Okay, she would have never had to come out the room. She would have been like, I'm 18, what the fuck are y'all doing? And this how I know my daughter. But because she was 17, they brought her ass out that motherfucking room and downstairs. So you get what I'm saying? And he was supposed to come. They was waiting for him. So they want to tell him.
Oh, he wasn't there?
Yeah, he was there. He was in the room with her ass. But the police allowed her to come out. This is what happened. The police brought her down there and got to talking to us to identify that's our daughter and everything. He was supposed to come right behind. And the police doubled back. He was gone. He went out the private exit the hotels have. Come the groupie ass security guards that my daughter said he was trying to get a job. And he left. The police doubled back. He never came back. They looked outside. His cars, the shit was gone.
So you ain't put in a report?
My wife did a report and everything. But when you got a child there that's saying nothing happened but an interview, but that's all we knew. It was supposed to be an interview. So why would we think anything else? You got your daughter standing right in front of you. And she said, Dad, I swear to God, was this week we did the interview. Y'all was kind of messing it up because I was ready to hit my high notes and this and that. All out. You understand what I'm saying?
So how soon did you find out they was messing with each other?
I didn't until like next year when somebody in the camp finally sent us messages. The whole time is this everybody music. She working on music. He was sending us samples of some of the music. This is how deep this shit get.
Wait. So she went and moved with him after that?
No, brother. She didn't move until September. This happened in August. See, that's what they didn't tell you. See, they made it like it was Monday, Tuesday.
A month later, she was with him.
What?
You said a month later she was living with him?
I said April is when they met. When this act
April is when they met.
She didn't leave to go the tour with him until his tour started up in September, which Az was ready to go back to school. So you're talking April to September. So tell them non-count motherfuckers that like to come up here and act like she met him Monday and moved in Friday, and her parents gave. Exactly. So you're talking about a whole summer of dialoguing with parents and everybody, and somebody like me. Yes, right. That I'm gonna fly in and see Joe face to face. We're gonna have to meet and we're gonna talk. This business, this is my daughter.
Who said by September did she turn 18?
She turned 18 in December. So she had like a month and a half. Yeah.
All right, so in September, when she went to go with him, that was for her to go on tour with him, to work with him. Allegedly.
Exactly. That's it. So you got now you mind. Now you mind.
Did y'all give her the permission to go with him?
Exactly. We gave permission through somebody that would have been from the label who posed up oversee her. Making sure.
For how long?
Till her birthday. I mean, you can't force her after 18. There's no point at 18. She only had a month and a half.
I emancipated her to him from September to December.
It was never nothing to him. It was to a female A&R, supposed to be A&R, but this was somebody who actually worked for him.
All right, so
I do know the business.
In September, and y'all knew she was going. It was like it wasn't like she ran away. Y'all thought
no,
like
brother, we never seen nothing say no ran away. Never. See this is you never.
No, I'm asking you these questions.
I know you are, but what I'm saying, you would never.
Listen, did y'all send her off in September, knowingly that she was going with R. Kelly?
Of course, we told the whole world. I was in Surviving R. Kelly. You think my daughter would leave at 17? That wouldn't happen. Without this ran away.
Well, y'all was cool with her going to stay with him. She was staying with him, or she was given living quarters.
We living. There you go. Now you being an industry man. Living quarters is what it's supposed to be, brother. Exactly. With the same person that we gave power of attorney to. So yes. So we're gonna talk. That's all industry level. This happens every day. And now I'm gonna let you have the floor so you can explain it to these dumb motherfuckers in the back that happened through entertainment, that happened through movies, through everything, basketball, football, you name it. A child have to go with somebody for somewhere where a parent have to give permission, especially if they good. So this is not nothing new.
Do you regret giving permission now?
Fuck yeah. I regret so much. I regret some other shit I would never not to say that should have been an outcome. But I regret a whole lot of shit as a parent. What parent wouldn't regret it? What parent wouldn't regret it? That's what I don't understand.
Ask everybody this question. If you had it to do over again, what would you have done different?
That shit. Brother, if I had to do that shit.
Editing a PDF is no longer a problem. PDF Filler is the most powerful and comprehensive on.
Over. She probably.
I want to go back a little bit further. Hold on, real quick.
If you're not a man or a woman on here and looking at, her meeting him. Okay, her meeting him. My people just hit me up. Thanks for paging me. Page me. Don't call my phone right now because it keep knocking me out. So her meeting him, right? So she met him. My daughter drive. My daughter and son drive to school.
You said she left school to go meet him. That's where you was at.
Similarity, but I want them to understand. I gotta say this point, and this ain't bragging or nothing. My kids go to the same high school. They're a year apart. They both drive their own car since high school started. So I just want to give you a picture of that for you, because you can understand that. Just for the motherfuckers in the back that would never buy their child a car. See, both of my kids. So my son came out of school early because he's in the 12th. So he gets out at half a day and go to work. He noticed his sister's car wasn't there. So immediately what he do? He called his parents. Hey, y'all had to go somewhere. She not in school. I'm getting out of school. Her car ain't here. We automatically we call up her choir teacher. No, Az don't have early choir, nothing else, blah, blah, blah. So when you don't have this, he did exactly what he was supposed to do for his family. Called his parents. And from there, we moved. We moved in trying to find out where the fuck she was at. So you asked the question, how quick was it? It was a day and a half. That's how quick it was. A nigga supposed to have been in the show in Miami, and he didn't go to the show. He came back to Orlando, double back, and met my daughter, and told her he needed to interview her because he ain't had no time, and he wanted to see if he could fit her in as opening up on the show. He wanted to really see what he had.
Now, I'm gonna come back to that. Now, you remember what he just said, right? That how he found out that his daughter was with R. Kelly because his son left out of school, seen her car was missing, because y'all dummies in the back don't buy y'all kids cards. And that's how he found out that she left school and she was with R. Kelly, right? And remember, I asked her, so how you know she was with R. Kelly? Oh, I knew people, right? Let me play that part just one more time.
She sold all that shit with all them talking. That's how this happened. A man supposed to been the Miami show. He canceled that show. And they look, they do all that research. Tell them research the Miami show canceled to come back to have sex with a goddamn minor. See, that's all the shit they don't want to tell you the truth about because they don't know. Because
so
they
also keep in mind that he keeps saying that she was a minor, right? Watch this. This is gonna blow your socks off. I'm telling you. If anybody said, yo, no, R. Kelly deserved to be in jail, this is the part y'all need to send them right now when I read these text messages from her mother. Wait till y'all see this.
He wasn't in it. There are internet supporters that became fanatics to get their name up, to become somebody.
Fuck them.
That's exactly. So that's what happened. It happened that Monday. She skipped school. And the police was called. The police came because we was beating on a five-star hotel room, back and forth, banging on the doors. The regular security tried
How
to
did
show
y'all
us
know
out
where they
there.
was at?
We didn't know, but we knew they was in that motherfucker because we saw my daughter's car and we saw his tour bus and all that shit. We beat on doors. It was floors you couldn't get on, and they called the regular police. But
How y'all know he was at that hotel?
Well, you know, I have people that's in the industry as well.
Okay.
That, you know, a lot of calls because we couldn't find her at first. It turned the phone off.
Did y'all, when y'all called her, she didn't answer?
She turned the phone off. You know, he played his rules, no phone. So when she was doing the interview, cut your phone off. So, you know, and then when she by then, you did an act with him. So now imagine your parents downstairs, police come drag you out of motherfucking room with your school ID. Now everybody know in Florida, no, your ID show, your permit, your paper show your age. There's no getting around it. And I'm quite sure this man is a police officer. He know what the fuck it read.
Y'all called the police on him right there?
Everybody in the hotel called the police. So when the police came, we told them what we was there for. That's why we was violating guest room. If my daughter was 18, now, Choke, you've been in the industry, you've been around a long time. I'm just going to say this. This may be the dumbest question in the world. Do you think the police could pull an 18-year-old out of a hotel room without making a lawsuit? Because if I'd have told him my daughter was 18 years old, he would have said, have a nice day. I'm sorry you can't disturb the guests. You can wait here peacefully and hope to see her, but can't disturb the guests. Am I lying or not? Lying or not? It's no foul play. It's this parent saying, our 18-year-old daughter is with a man. He would say, okay, she's hello. 18, okay.
You might have a point there.
Okay, thank you. She would have never had to come out the room. She would have been like, I'm 18, what the fuck are y'all doing? And this how I know my daughter. But because she was 17, they brought her ass out that motherfucking room. And down fast. So
we're going, all right. Now, let me show you something. You heard everything he said, right? I might have to go back to it again. Now, two things. First things first. Remember in the R. Kelly letters, he said he didn't have his discovery. He didn't get his discovery until after 2 weeks after he was already convicted. And his discovery was these text messages for him to present in court. They never gave him his discovery, so he couldn't use this in his defense. So being that he didn't have his discovery, you didn't see these text messages. When I seen this, I was so disgusted with her mother. Oh my God. Let me get back into it. On April 11th, you heard what he said, 2015. Hold on. All right, here we go. The government alternatively argues that the defendant is guilty of the Mann Act stemming from his April trip to California because the defendant knowingly persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced Jane, which is Azrael, to travel to California. Sorry, y'all. Insufficient evidence exists to prove that the defendant took any action to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce Jane, which is Azrael, into traveling to California in April through May 2015. Quite the opposite. The record shows that Jane's mother, Alice Clary, purposefully and strategically enticed the defendant with her 17-year-old daughter, comparing her to Aaliyah at various points. The government takes great umbrage to this characterization, but the record speaks for itself. Although the defense counsel did not make much use of it, meaning his other lawyers had the text messages and did not show them in court. Why? This would have got R. Kelly off. Although the defense counsel did not make use of it, Government Exhibit 233 offers powerful evidence showing that the defendant had no reason to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce Azrael into going to California with him. Text messages introduced by the government show that Jane, with the guidance of her mother, shows Azrael with the guidance of her mother, entice the defendant who reasonably believed Azrael was 18 years old to bring her to California. In short, when Azrael traveled to meet the defendant in California in April and May, she required no enticement, persuasion, or encouragement of any kind. On April 11, 2015, Azrael attended one of the defendant's concerts in Orlando, Florida. After the show, someone provided Azrael with R. Kelly's phone number. Azrael attempted to text the number on the phone and gave the paper to her mother. Although Azrael did not reach R. Kelly, Azrael's mother began texting R. Kelly, posing as Azrael, her 17-year-old daughter. Azrael eventually communicated directly with R. Kelly via FaceTime and told the defendant that she was 18 years of age. And that's in evidence R781. On April 20th, 5 days later, Azrael's mother, still posing as Azrael, initiated text messages to R. Kelly and arranged for Azrael to meet R. Kelly at a hotel in Orlando. Now, didn't I just ask that man? Oh, back then, didn't I ask that man, how did you know what hotel your daughter was at? Right? And then he say, I said, well, how do you know your daughter left school? He said, because her brother walked out of the school and saw that her car was gone. She was missing. All right, so she was missing. So how the hell did you know she was with R. Kelly out of all people? Because remember, he said she checked to see if she went to practice, and then they went looking for her. So how did you know she was with R. Kelly? Here you go, right here with the government text messages from her mother's phone. The mother is texting him, setting it up for him to come meet at the hotel and pop off. The mother texting as Azrael to R. Kelly for her daughter to go and meet this nigga at the hotel. That's for you dummies in the back that don't buy you kids cars. On April 20th, 2015, Jane's mother, still posing as Jane's, initiated the text messages with the defendant and arranged for Jane to meet the defendant at a hotel in Orlando. Government Exhibit 233, those text messages, shows that Jane and her mother knew from the start that the defendant was interested in Azrael sexually. Believing that she was of legal consent, believing that she was of legally consenting age. Before Azrael's first meeting with R. Kelly, Azrael's mother, Alice, text Azrael's mother text Azrael stating, this man is trying to screw, but I'm trying to make it business. He knows you're a singer, but he ain't playing. He wanted to fuck tonight. This is in the text messages, y'all. that the government subpoenaed from her mother's phone. How many of y'all remember Azrael's first interview with Gayle King when she said her mother was trying to sell her? Y'all believe her now? Or do you believe that fake ass second interview? It's the government with the text messages from their phone. They subpoenaed their phones. I have no respect for this lady. Despite that Jane and her mother, despite that Azrael and her mother were on notice that the defendant was interested in Azrael sexually, Azrael's mother encouraged Azrael to meet the defendant. She told Azrael to keep the defendant's curiosity piqued and advised her what she should wear to effectively entice him. During her in-court testimony, Azrael testified that she went to meet R. Kelly solely to audition for him, but her contemporaneous text messages reveal that Azrael was more interested in R. Kelly for personal and romantic reasons. Azrael texted her mother, "Oh, he's so fine." When Azrael's mother told her to be ready to sing something, Azrael said, "Ugh," suggesting that she did not actually want to audition for R. Kelly. Jane's mother encouraged, Alice encouraged Azrael to tease R. Kelly, but not to do anything sexual with him since he would lose interest in her. Believing that he was speaking to an 18-year-old Azrael, R. Kelly texted Alice that was staying on the tour bus. Believing that he was speaking to an 18-year-old Azrael, R. Kelly texted Azrael's mother that he was staying on the tour bus, but was going to a hotel room for their privacy. Azrael's mother then shared that message with Azrael texted, "Yep, he said he's staying on the tour bus, but he wants to get a hotel room for just y'all, so y'all can get away from security and his managers." In evidence GX233. Here's the part where your socks get blown off. If you ain't contacted the people that now you need to contact the people that love R. Kelly and tell them your boy getting ready to come on. So Alice texts Azrael, "Yep, he said he's staying on the tour bus, but he wants to get a hotel room just for y'all, so y'all can get away from the security and the managers, etc." So Azrael's mother gave Azrael some final advice before she sent her daughter to meet R. Kelly, who believed Azrael to be 18 years old. And there's the text messages. I'm telling you, I listen to his text message. Be prepared to sing 3 songs, he said. He will meet you and listen to your song. Now, remember, the mother's being able to tell her this because R. Kelly is texting the mother thinking he's texting Azrael. So she's reiterating what he's saying to her. You know what I'm saying? So she's briefing her on what he's saying. So the mother knows everything that's going on before Azrael. Now, here's the text messages between them. Be prepared to sing 3 songs. He said he will meet you and listen to your song. Please have your glasses off and your hair to the side. Mama knows best. Pretty hurts. Mama knows best. Mama knows best. Oh, mama knows best, pretty. Hurts in third, your choice. Don't tell. Don't yell. Mama knows best. Pretty hurts. And your third choice, don't yell. Put on the show. Grab his hand and shimmy, wiggle, and sit in his lap. Entice him. While singing, it's all about performance. This is your chance and opportunity. Don't blow it. Azrael's mother even told Azrael not to look grown. Emphasis added. So Azrael must have sent her a text message showing her how she looked, right? This is what her mother says. Take off that ugly ass lipstick. I told you he don't want you to be grown. I told you to keep the hair curly. That shit looks a mess. You need some jeans or some shorts. You trying to look grown. He don't want you because you look young. I mean, he wanted you because you look young and innocent. That's what he want. Not no little girl trying to look grown. You a damn fool. Kenyatta, KP. What do y'all got to say to that? If this, if that was my baby mother, I would have to put my foot across her back pocket. Take off that ugly ass lipstick. I told you he don't want you to be grown. I told you to keep your hair curly. That shit looks a mess. You need some jeans or some shorts. You trying to look grown. He wanted you because you look young and innocent. That's what he want. Not no little girl trying to be grown. You a damn fool. And R. Kelly in jail, fell in love, out here crying on the goddamn internet. This girl in this man's house with niggas and carrying on. And this whole thing was a plot from the beginning. He really fell in love with this girl, thought she was of age, and had her and her mother lying, set him up. She pimping her daughter. and sent him to jail. And this was they key witness. This was they ace in the hole to why he's in the jail. And they set him up. Is he wrong for dating young women? Mentally, depending on who you are, yes. Is it illegal? No. If they lie about their age, it's like going to the DMV. If they give you a license in there and they tell you this is legit, and you get pulled over and you give it to the county, say it's a fake license, the DMV, they deceived you. So she lied about her age, and just because he like young girls, that's his business. Everybody don't have that preference. But if they legal, it ain't nothing wrong with it legally. Morally is a different thing. But look what her mother's doing. Telling her to lie about her age, sitting in this man's lap, and she's texting him, setting it up. It ain't like he got the daughter number and he kicking it to the daughter. The mother's sitting there acting like she the daughter. And telling her daughter to play by play. And go up there, yo, don't give him no sex on the first night. He gonna lose interest. Let me move on, man. Defying her mother's advice to merely tease R. Kelly, Azrael engaged in sexual contact with R. Kelly in the hotel room. Azrael stripped down to her undergarments and walked back and forth for R. Kelly. She later acquiesced to removing her clothes, testifying that she got on top of him backwards and he did lick my butt. After the sexual encounter, officers arrived at the hotel room and knocked on the door. After arranging for Azrael to meet R. Kelly in his hotel room, Azrael's parents apparently called the police. Azrael described R. Kelly as nervous and anxious, asking her to confirm that she was 18 years old as she had represented. Azrael testified at the trial, after R. Kelly looked through the peephole, he made me go into the restroom immediately and told me to get dressed. And he said, "Are you 18? And I said, yes. He said, "Don't lie to me." And I said, yes. R. Kelly opened the door and the police checked Jane's identification to confirm her age before leaving. Evidence R-794. Defendant was present. R. Kelly was present when the police officers checked Azrael's identification. Rather than calling it a night, Azrael again removed her clothes and got on top of R. Kelly to continue their sexual activities. Let's stop there for a second.
Saying
he was supposed to anything?
He was supposed to come. They was waiting for him. So they want to tell us.
He was there?
Yeah, he was there. In the room with her ass. But the police allowed her to come out. This is what happened. Police brung her down there and got talking to us to identify that's our daughter and everything. He was supposed to come right behind. And the police doubled back. He was gone. He went out the private exit the hotels have. Come the group security guards that my daughter said he was trying to get a job. And he left. So when the police double back, he never came down. They looked outside, his cars and shit was gone.
So you ain't put in a
So
report?
my wife did a report and everything, but when you got a child there saying nothing happened but an interview, because that's all we did. It was supposed to be an interview. So why would we think anything else? You got your daughter standing right in front of you. And she said, Dad, I swear to God, was this week we did the interview. Y'all was kind of messing it up because I was great, hit my high notes and this and that. All lie. You understand what I'm saying?
So how soon did you find out they were messing with each other?
I didn't until like next year when somebody in the camp finally sent us messages. The whole time was this. Everybody music. She working on music. He was sending us samples of some of the music. This is how deep this shit get.
Wait. So she went and moved with him after that?
No, brother. She didn't move till September. This happened in August. That's what they didn't tell you. So they made it like it was Monday,
a month
Tuesday.
later, she was with him.
And what?
You said a month later she was living with him?
I said August, April is when they met. When this act
April is when they met.
She didn't leave to go to the tour with him until his tour started up in September, which Az was ready to go back to school. So you're talking April to September. So tell them motherfuckers that like to come up here and act like she met him Monday and moved in Friday, and her parents gave her. Exactly. So you talking about a whole summer of dialoguing with parents and everybody, and somebody like me. That's right. I'm going to fly in and see Joe face to face. We're going to have to meet and we will talk. This business, this is my daughter.
Who said by September did she turn 18?
She turned 18 in December. So she had like a month and a half. Yeah.
All right, so in September, when she went to go with him, that was for her to go on tour with him, to work with him, allegedly?
Exactly. That's it. So you got now your mind.
Did y'all give her the permission to go with him?
Exactly. We gave permission through somebody that supposed to be from the label who supposed to oversee her. Make it
for how long?
Till her birthday. I mean, you can't force her after 18. There's no point at 18. She only had a month and a half.
Y'all emancipated her to him from September to December?
It was never nothing to him. It was to a female A&R, supposed to be an A&R, but this was somebody who actually worked for him. I do know the business.
And y'all knew she was going. It wasn't like she ran away. Y'all thought
brother, we never seen nothing say no ran away. Never. See, this is you never.
No, I'm asking you these questions.
I know you are, but when I said you never listen.
Did y'all send her off in September, knowing that she was going with R. Kelly?
Of course, we told the whole world. That was in Surviving R. Kelly. You think my daughter would leave at 17? That wouldn't happen. That wouldn't without just ran away.
Well, y'all was cool with her going to stay with him. She was staying with him, or she was given living quarters.
We living. There you go. Now you being an industry man. Living quarters is what it's supposed to be, brother. Exactly. With the same person that we gave power of attorney to. So yes. So we're gonna talk. That's on industry level. This happens every day. And now I'm gonna let you have the floor so you can explain it to these dumb motherfuckers in the back that happen through entertainment, that happen through movies, through everything, basketball, football, you name it. A child have to go with somebody for somewhere where a parent have to give permission, especially if they good. So this is not nothing new.
You can't make this up. All right, so let me go back a little bit. And you got to think, they in there having sex. The mother already set the precedence where R. Kelly's thinking that that's the daughter She's of age. The mother's sitting there sexting with him. So by the time he get to the hotel room with her, he done felt like he done had conversations with her, this, that, and the third, and they just popping off. But the mother set it up, which is crazy. I mean, crazy. After the sexual encounter, officers arrived at the hotel and knocked on the door. After arranging for Azrael to meet R. Kelly in his hotel room, Azrael's parents apparently called the police. Now, this dude just said R. Kelly just ran out the back door, right? You heard him say that? They was downstairs. He said the police brought Azrael downstairs. They don't state that here or in Azrael testimony. And it definitely don't state that R. Kelly ran out some backside secret door. I don't know what hotels got secret doors, side doors, maybe an exit door. But he ran out the side door. But the mother said he had his tour bus there. So how could he run away with a big ass tour bus and escape the police? Anyway, after the sexual encounter, officers arrived at the hotel room and knocked on the door. After arranging for Azrael to meet R. Kelly in his hotel room, Azrael's parents apparently called the police. Azrael described R. Kelly as nervous and anxious, asking her to confirm that she was 18 years old as she had represented. Azrael testified at trial after R. Kelly looked through the peephole. He made me go into the restroom immediately and told me to get dressed. And he said, "Are you 18? And I said, "Yes." He said, "Don't lie to me." And I said, "Yes." The defendant opened the door and the police checked Azrael's identification to confirm her age before leaving. R. Kelly was present when the police officer checked Azrael's identification. Rather than calling it a night, Azrael again removed her clothes and got back on top of the R. Kelly to continue their sexual activities. After her first encounter with R. Kelly, Azrael told her mother that R. Kelly had asked whether he could fly her to meet him. Azrael told her mother, "I said, duh." Oh, excuse me. After her first encounter with R. Kelly, Azrael told her mother that R. Kelly had asked whether he could fly her to meet him. Azrael told her mother, "I said, duh." Azrael continued to communicate with R. Kelly via text message and by phone and continued to spend time with R. Kelly in Orlando doing normal dating activities such as seeing movies and eating out. At one point, Azrael's mother got frustrated with Azrael for not prioritizing her music with R. Kelly. On April 23rd, 2015, Azrael's mother texted her, "You need to let him hear your songs. Let him see your video. You trying to date the man. You need to let him see your shit." Azrael's mother also continued to encourage Azrael's relationship with R. Kelly, telling her to be a little feisty, stating, "He married Aaliyah because she was feisty. She didn't let him run over her. You need to be different than the rest." Later that evening, Azrael's mother texts Azrael, "You silly. You are silly. That man ain't trying to do nothing with you musically. He want to fuck. Period, because he like young girls." Azrael reassured her mother that R. Kelly was willing to look at her performances and was patiently waiting to look at some of her videos that her mother had emailed him. On April 24th, 2015, After the defendant had left Orlando, Azrael's mother instructed Azrael, you better be texting him so you will stay on his mind. Yo, is her mother a pimp? Her mother is Mother Bishop Don Juan. Like, yo. And then, like, he thinks she's 18. They all know she's 17. And her mother's still encouraging her to have this relationship with this grown-ass man. And y'all mad at R. Kelly. How are y'all not mad at the parents that do this type of stuff just to set him up, just to extort him? Allegedly. I don't understand it. Like, y'all so mad at him. And look what the mother doing. This is actual real government text messages. I mean, government evidence from her text message, from her phone. This is the mother. You are silly. That man ain't trying to do nothing musically. He wanted to fuck, period, because he like young girls. But she knew that when she was texting him, and she told Azrael in the beginning, yo, he don't want to do no music. She want to fuck. She told her that. And you still sent her to him. And told her to lie about her age. Azrael reassured her mother that R. Kelly was willing to look at her performances and was patiently waiting to look at some of her videos that her mother had emailed her. On April 24th, 2015, after R. Kelly had left Orlando, Azrael's mother instructed Azrael, you better be texting him so you'll stay on his mind. Later that day, Azrael texted her mother about flying out to see the defendant in California. Azrael, and I talked to R. Kelly. Mom, yeah? About what? He about to be flying me out. Oh, really? When? Yeah, whenever I tell him he can. Tomorrow if I choose. Oh, yeah? What mother or daughter is having that conversation like that? Sally, what up? On April 28th, Azrael traveled to Los Angeles, California to meet R. Kelly with the knowledge and consent of her parents. Evidence R799, R814, and GS233. Jane continued to text her mother once in Los Angeles. At one point, her mother told her, he going to be in your room butt naked with one of his songs playing. And R. Kelly's in jail. And R. Kelly's in jail. Y'all don't think he deserved to come home after what this lady did? This is why I don't blame the father too much, because I don't see the mother's doing all the quarterbacking. And she could have been lying to the pops. Who knows? Jane continued to text with her mother and once in Los Angeles. At one point, her mother told her, he going to be in your room butt naked with one of his songs playing. Reflects that Azrael and her mother texted incessantly while Azrael was in Los Angeles with the defendant. Azrael tells her mother at one point, crazy, this Aaliyah movie just came on, and I just got off the phone with R. Kelly. Mom responded, really? Crazy? Really? Crazy. Azrael testified that she had oral sex with R. Kelly in Los Angeles, but she did not share that information with her mother via text. At no point did Azrael express any apprehensions about being with R. Kelly or ask her mother to arrange for her to come home. When Azrael excitedly told her mother that she was riding R. Kelly's tour bus to Stockton to attend his concert, Azrael's mother responded, "Oh my God, excited you riding on the tour bus?" On May 1st, 2015, Azrael's mother urged Azrael to take advantage of R. Kelly. On May 1st, 2015, Azrael's mother urged Azrael to take advantage of R. Kelly, texting her, "It won't be star lifestyle if you don't get serious about your music and show this man you want to be famous like him. Once he's tired of you, you'll be looking like everybody else. You better use this as your opportunity while you got him in the spell." Azrael's mother then said, "You should text him and be like, you know you're going to be my boo, and see what he say." To which Azrael responded, laughing my ass off. Azrael traveled independently to meet R. Kelly in Stockton, California, where he was performing May 1st. She stayed in contact with her mother the entire time. At one point, Azrael explained to her mother how she ended up going to Stockton to see R. Kelly's performance. "I told you. He asked me, did I want to come to his show? I said, of course. And he said, okay, then. Let's pack this stuff up. He was even putting his stuff in my bag." Azrael and her mother remained in constant communication before the defendant's show. Azrael's mother instructed her about what to wear and made suggestions about how she should behave at the defendant's show. "I will blow him little kisses and wink at him and bite the tip of my finger and mess with him real good. Do something seductive, then make a silly face." Azrael and her mother continued to text throughout the defendant's performance. At one point, Azrael and her mother exchanged the following text. Azrael, "He's singing his whole show to me." Laugh out loud. "Too funny." The mother. Azrael, "Oh," mother, laugh out loud. Azrael, "Oh, this man is in love." Mom, "Oh my God, you're gonna marry him and have his babies?" Oh my God, my son-in-law gonna be older than me. Too damn funny. Laughing my ass off. Yo, Mom, "Well, you better get signed first, then marry second." This lady's a stone cold gold digger, dog. Jesus Christ. Like, her daughter in love, she like, "Man, you better get signed first, then marry that nigga." Like, God damn, shorty. "Mom, he gonna seduce you tonight." Azrael. "Mom, you have to give him a massage before he go to bed." No, I doubt it. "Girl, you better, or he will get his somewhere else." "No, girl, you better, or he will get someone else too." Azrael's mother continued to encourage her to seduce R. Kelly. At one point, Azrael told her mother that she caught feelings for the defendant. According to Azrael, she and R. Kelly had sexual intercourse for the first time after the concert. At no point during her travels with R. Kelly in California in April and May of 2015 did Azrael disclose that she was 17 years of age or that she had lied to him about her age. After the trip to California, Azrael traveled to meet R. Kelly in Las Vegas, where he was performing. No rational juror could conclude that R. Kelly enticed, persuaded, induced, or coerced Azrael to travel to California. Azrael's contemporaneous conversation. What is that word? Contemporaneous conversations with her mother show that the defendant invited Azrael to join him, and she excitedly accepted. When her mother asked her when he asked her to travel, Azrael told her mother, "Whenever I tell him I can. Tomorrow if I choose." By her own admission, Azrael chose to travel with R. Kelly because she wanted to, and her mother encouraged her. While this court concluded that Azrael's parents' testimony was not relevant for the purpose defense counsel sought to introduce it, Azrael's text messages with her mother, introduced as government's Exhibits 233, were highly relevant evidence that the defendant took no action to induce, persuade, or coerce Azrael to travel with him. Azrael was eager to travel with R. Kelly and caught feelings for him, as she admitted and concealed her age. Azrael was eager to travel with R. Kelly and caught feelings for him, as she admitted and concealed her age from R. Kelly so she could pursue a relationship with him. The government's evidence fails to show that Azrael was persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced into traveling to California, which is 110% a fact. Her mother's foul. Her mother is something else. Number 7, Racketeering Act 9. The Mann Act violations. Azrael. The government charged R. Kelly with 4 Mann Act violations, stemming from a trip with Azrael to California between September 2015 and October 2015, 2 months before her 18th birthday. According to Azrael, she disclosed her true age prior to this trip. The government's evidence is insufficient as to these Mann Act violations. Racketeering Acts 9A, transportation. For the same reason argued in connection with Racketeering 8A, the government failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant, 1, transported Azrael with the intent of exposing her to herpes in September, October 2015, and 2, committed a violation of the California Health and Safety Code by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. The arguments set forth supra are equally applicable. Racketeering Act 9A. B. Racketeering 9B, coercion enticement. Insufficient evidence exists to prove that R. Kelly committed Racketeering Act 9B by all accounts. R. Kelly and Azrael were in a serious and legal relationship based in Illinois, where the defendant resides, in the fall 2015. Although Jane testified that she told the defendant her true age after the summer ended in 2015, the record does not reflect precisely when she told the defendant her true age. As such, the government failed to show that the defendant possessed the request means to sustain a charge of unlawful sexual intercourse with a person under 18 years old under the California Penal Code in September or October of 2015. So him sleeping while in Chicago didn't matter because the consent in Chicago is 17. Furthermore, the record is devoid of evidence that the defendant took any action to induce, persuade, entice, coerce Azrael into traveling to California between September and October of 2015. Critically, when the defendant learned that Jane had lied about her age, he sent her home to Florida. Azrael returned to Chicago with her parents' consent. Although it is true that Azrael's parents did not have authority to consent any illegal sexual activity between Azrael and R. Kelly, their permission to allow her to stay with R. Kelly is reflective of Azrael's desire to continue her relationship with R. Kelly. Azrael offered no testimony to suggest that she was coerced or enticed into traveling to California in fall of 2015. Azrael's testimony about R. Kelly's rules and sexual proclivities during this time period are not sufficient evidence of coercion to travel, even if Azrael now believes, with the benefit of in hindsight, that R. Kelly's conduct was controlling or constituted some type of grooming. Racketeering Act 9-6, coercion or enticement. C. The government charged R. Kelly with the Mann Act violation under the separate theory that R. Kelly transported Azrael to California in September or October of 2015 with the intent to violate California penal law section, unlawful sexual intercourse with a person under 18. Preliminary, for the reasons argued supra, the government simply failed to prove that the defendant took any action to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce Azrael into traveling to California. By late 2015, the defendant and Jane were in a serious relationship based primarily in Illinois, where the defendant resides. The age consent in Illinois is 17. Therefore, the defendant and Azrael's sexual relationship was not prohibited there. Their sexual relationship was not prohibited there. Jane traveled prohibited there. Jane traveled with the defendant to numerous states as one of his partners. She was consensually and voluntarily. R. Kelly did not have to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce her to travel, even if the government is correct that the defendant had exerted some dominance or control in the relationship at the time. Furthermore, as argued, in connection with Racketeering Act 5, the government provided insufficient evidence that the defendant used any words to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce Azrael to travel to California via facility of interstate commerce. Under the plain reading of the statute, there must be a nexus between the use of facility of interstate commerce, a cell phone, computer, and the words of persuasion, enticement, or coercion to satisfy a violation. The record is devoid of that proof. The mere fact that the defendant texts with Jane about any number of things does not satisfy the interstate commerce elements of this Mann Act violation. Racketeering Act 9D, transportation. It is true that in the state of California, the age of consent is 18. According to Azrael, she had sexual relations with R. Kelly in California during this trip when she was still 17 years of age. However, the government failed to prove R. Kelly guilty of the Mann Act under this theory, where R. Kelly's motivating purpose in traveling to California was not to have sex with Azrael. Azrael. R. Kelly and Azrael had a consensual and legal sexual relationship in Illinois. Defendant's purpose in traveling to California was to perform, and he arranged for his girlfriend to go with him. If R. Kelly had sexual relationships with Azrael in California in September and October, it was purely incidental of the purpose of the trip. As Azrael herself testified when asked, question, and while you were 17, did you take additional trips to California with the defendant? Yes, I did. And do you remember where you traveled to? I do not. Do you remember what the purpose of your travel was for? Yes, he has shows. No rational juror could find the government. No rational juror could find that the government proved that the defendant's motivating purpose in transporting Azrael to California was to have sexual intercourse with her, particularly where he had an ongoing legal and consensual sexual relationship with her in the state of Illinois, where he resided. At bottom, no nexus exists between the transportation of Azrael and the alleged illegal sexual activity. Racketeering Act 10, Sexual Exploitation of Jane. The government failed to prove, if you can't hear me, it's your phone or come on YouTube. The government failed to prove Racketeering Act 10. That is sexual exploitation of Azrael, where it offered insufficient evidence that the defendant used, employed, persuaded, induced, or enticed Azrael to take part in sexually explicit conduct for the purpose of producing a visual depiction between September 2015 and December 30th. The government contends that prior to Jane's 18th birthday, defendant recorded his sexual experiences, his sexual experiences with her in California. To demonstrate that the defendant committed sexual exploitation of a child pursuant to 18 USC 225, it is not enough for Azrael to simply allege that R. Kelly recorded sexually explicit conduct. Azrael offered no testimony that proved that R. Kelly used, persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced her into sexually explicit conduct during the relevant time period. Azrael had an ongoing relationship with the defendant before the video recorded incident and after the video recorded incident. Although Jane seems to regret those experiences, although Azrael seems to regret those experiences, she did not offer sufficient evidence of enticement or coercion. The government must prove that the defendant did something more than just film the sexually explicit conduct. If the act of filming or recording alone was sufficient to sustain the charge, Congress would not have included a requirement that the defendant employ, persuade, induce, entice, or coerce. Furthermore, the government failed to prove that the defendant acted with a purpose of producing a visual depiction of that conduct. Although the jury was erroneously charged that the government could sustain the charge by proving that the purpose was transmitting a visual depiction, the statute requires something different here. Indeed, producing is defined by a statute as producing, directing, manufacturing, issuing, publishing, or advertising. 18 U.S.C. 2256. While the statute also prohibits the transmission of live visual depictions, R. Kelly was not charged with transmitting a live visual depiction, and there is no evidence that he did. According to the government, accordingly, the government failed to prove Racketeering Act 10 by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Racketeering Act 11, forced labor of Azrael. The government charged R. Kelly with forced labor of Azrael under the theory that R. Kelly required Azrael to participate in sex with other men and other women. Although at trial, Azrael claimed that she did not want to participate in those activities and that she did not enjoy those activities. That does not mean that Jane was forced to participate in those activities. Or that does not mean that Azrael was forced to participate in those activities. If Azrael refuses even now to allege that she was forced by threats of violence to engage in sexual acts, it is unclear why the government believes she was. Again, belatedly acknowledging that one really did not want to participate in the conduct is not the equivalent of being forced. The record is devoid of any evidence that Jane was forced within the meaning of the statute to have sex with individuals other than the defendant, or that she was prohibited in any way from extricating herself from the relationship. The government's evidence that Azrael was forced to participate in these sexual acts consisted of Alex's nephew, in parentheses, testimony that some women he had sex with were zombie-ish, and that R. Kelly had directed women other than Azrael to participate in group sex. Rather than point to the jury the specific evidence from Azrael's testimony that reflected that she had been forced to participate in these activities through violence, restraint, or threat of violence, the government argued that the defendant had directed Dominique to have sexual intercourse with Alex. While the government was permitted to offer an extraordinary amount of uncharged bad act evidence for various purposes, such evidence cannot supplement the government's burden to show that Azrael herself was forced to participate in group sex acts. The evidence offered was insufficient proof of the offense of forced labor, as discussed in connection with Racketeering Act 6. The government cannot establish the offense of forced labor by simply showing that R. Kelly and Azrael had sexual relationship that some might consider abusive. The government was required to establish a causal link between the group sex acts and threats of physical violence. It failed to do so. Yeah, that ain't forced labor. Forced labor is making her sell her coochie, and she don't want to sell it. Telling her, yo, let my man hit that. and y'all into group sex, or yo, we gonna have group sex, you know, you can let nephew hit that. That ain't forced labor. Forced labor is hold somebody against their will, damn near, and making them work. So I agree, they failed with that. None of them was having forced labor, for that matter. Number 10, Racketeering Act 12, Mann Act, faith. Oh, so we moving on to faith. The government charged the defendant with two Mann Act violations in connection with Faith's trip to New York in May 2017, alleging that the defendant violated 18 USC. And the government charged that the defendant either transported or persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced Faith to travel to New York with the purpose of knowingly exposing her to an infectious venereal disease under New York public health law and reckless endangerment pursuant to New York penal law. The government failed to prove Mann Act violations where it offered insufficient evidence that the defendant, one, transported Faith with the intent of exposing her to herpes, persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced Faith to travel to New York with the intent of exposing her to herpes. Separately, the government failed to prove that the defendant committed the offense of reckless endangerment or a violation of New York public health law, section 2307, which is unconstitutional and in an event both effectively and applied to the defendant, and then applied to the defendant. Intent. Because there is no link connecting R. Kelly transportation of Faith with an intent to expose her to herpes, R. Kelly cannot be guilty of a Mann Act violation. As discussed at the length, the government must prove that the illegal sexual activity is the dominant, significant, or motivating purpose behind the transportation. Because the defendant because the defendant's purported violation of New York public health law prohibited him from exposing a partner to herpes was incidental to Faith's trip rather than the motivating purpose and transportation Faith, the intent required of the statute cannot be sustained. The government argued to the jury that it should find the defendant guilty of the Mann Act violation by merely finding that R. Kelly transported Faith to New York from her hometown in Texas for the purpose of sex. The only remaining issue is whether the sexual activity that he brought her for was illegal, and it was. This argument is legally flawed. Transporting Faith to New York to have sex would not satisfy the elements of a violation under Section 2421, since the act itself was perfectly legal as Faith was a consenting adult. The activity was allegedly illegal in New York, was exposing Faith to herpes. It is that act that must be motivating. It is that act that must be the motivating purpose behind R. Kelly's transportation of Faith, because the government cannot demonstrate a nexus between R. Kelly's motivation for transportation Faith to New York and the illegal sexual activity. R. Kelly must be acquitted of the 2421 offense. Coercion and enticement. The government alternatively argues that the defendant is guilty of the Mann Act stemming from Faith's trip May 18th, 2017. Trip to New York because defendant knowingly persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced Azrael to travel to New York for the purpose of exposing her to herpes. Insufficient evidence exists to prove that the defendant took any action to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce Azrael into traveling to New York on May 18th of 2017. The evidence shows that the defendant invited a grown woman to meet him in New York, and she accepted it. Oh, this Jane must be Faith. They went from saying her name to calling her Jane. All right, in March 2017, Faith attended one of R. Kelly's concerts in San Antonio, Texas, with her sister. Faith had the opportunity to meet R. Kelly at an after party backstage along with other individuals. R. Kelly and Faith had a conversation during the after party, and R. Kelly provided her with his phone number. After that encounter, Faith and R. Kelly kept in touch via text message and FaceTime. The conversations were normal, appropriate, and pleasant. Defendant R. Kelly complimented her appearance. Faith testified R. Kelly referred to himself as daddy during those conversations. According to Faith, defendant according to Faith, R. Kelly asked to be called daddy, and she complied. Faith did not testify that the defendant forced her to call him daddy. Indeed, the defendant and Faith had met exactly one time when Faith began calling him daddy. On the issues of travel, Faith had this to say. In your communication with the defendant, if at all, did the topic of traveling to see him come up? He had informed me that he was on tour right now, or excuse me, at the time. He was on tour, so he was just saying his schedule was kind of crazy, but whenever I wanted to see him, I could. And he just said that he could arrange the days or just let him know when, and I could come to hang out. But that it could be fun. But that it would be fun. I would get to see you. You know how it is, how he is on tour, things like that. The defendant told Faith that if she wanted to come to his show, she could contact his assistant and he would arrange it for her. Faith then contacted R. Kelly's assistant, who made travel arrangements for her. Originally, Faith was going to travel to Chicago, but ultimately traveled to New York for one of R. Kelly's performances. According to Faith, R. Kelly informed her that he was having a show in New York and that he would like for me to come hang out. It was going to be fun. So I said yes. R. Kelly's assistant arranged for her to travel, and Faith traveled to New York to attend R. Kelly's performance and hang out. No rational juror can conclude from Faith's testimony that the defendant coerced or enticed her to travel to New York for the purpose of giving her herpes. By Faith's account, R. Kelly was polite, generous, and appropriate, leaving it entirely at her discretion to come to New York to attend the concert. R. Kelly's alleged bad behavior with other women is not sufficient evidence of his specific conduct in connection with Faith on May 18, 2017. The government routinely asked the jury to find that it had proven elements of the charged offense simply because R. Kelly had, from the government's perspective, been controlling and coerced to other women. Faith testimony does not establish any conduct on the part of R. Kelly that shows that he did anything other than invite her to come to his concert in New York. An invitation she accepted. Frankly, this conduct proves coercion, or frankly, if this conduct proves coercion or enticement by proof beyond a reasonable doubt, the government is going to be very busy prosecuting Mann Act violations. Although it seems unlikely that the government has much of an intention of using this provision to prosecute influential, wealthy white men who invite women on fancy trips for the purpose of engaging in sexual activity that those women later decide was unpleasant. You know what? All right, y'all. I'm going to take a break for now. I'm going to come back tomorrow around noon, and I'll continue this at noon tomorrow. And then I'll rock out for a couple of hours and then come back at my usual time at 7 again tomorrow so I can get this all done. But if you don't see that R. Kelly got railroaded by now, like, I think that was more than enough for you to say that they need to overturn this conviction. Even if you hate R. Kelly, you gotta keep it real with yourself and say, yo, come on, y'all. Yeah. Azrael and her parents, that's straight extortion, man. That's straight, like, they tricked him, they lied, man. Yo. Do you understand how scary that is? That's scary, man. It's scary, man. Show no joke. I'll catch y'all tomorrow, man. Love, I appreciate y'all. Moderator is squad. You know what it is.
Check it out. Choke no joke. Learn from mistakes. DJ S&S the great. It ain't no telling you be a first-time felon. No telling when you be a first-time felon. It ain't no telling you be a first-time felon. No telling when you be a first-time felon. Best day of my life, no sleep all night. Broke day for weeks, my cash was right. My capo tight, take our loot, unite. 23-hour shifts had to see loot like Mike. Cash lovely, yeah, Dougie. How could this day get so ugly? Wifey bout to pop like some bubbly. Yo, doodles not moss, don't really bug me. Felt like a star, cop first car. Get up with the guard, what it is, baby paw. He about to cop a van, get up with our mans. Before we reached our low spot, toes blam. Unaware what happened, discussing and clapping. It wasn't loud, ain't shit gonna happen. Me being stupid, instead of getting it moving, this nigga kept chefing like the woo one. Then we heard a knock, no one knew of this spot. 6 niggas in the spot, 6 niggas not. Ain't no telling you be a first-time felon. No telling when you be a first-time felon. It ain't no telling you be a first-time felon. No telling when you
be a first time felon. It ain't no telling you be a first time felon. No telling when you be a first time felon. I'm in the precinct all damn evening. This good cop, bad cop shit got me steaming. No, I was caught, I ain't give a fuck. Had jokes like the usual suspects line up. Book time's up, came back fucked. Shirt wrinkled up, my pigs roughed me up. Time's up, heard them clink of the cuffs. Niggas was so deep they had to call on the bus. Everybody that jacks outside waiting on us like ghetto celebs. Our cells ain't plush. 5 in the book and gave a whooping. He never forget, they gotta be split. Up in the courtroom, they cause it ruckus. Everybody in the jacks waiting on us. Try to bail us out, that thought got thrown out. Bill was so high, I couldn't be a half a nigga out. Copped out, that's what first fell in the bow. Back on the bus, Rikers the row. Wifey in the courtroom crying out. We love y'all with tears running in their mouth. It ain't no telling you be a first time felon. No telling when you be a first time felon. It ain't no telling you be a first time felon. No telling